Sweet Home CannaBama Radio is evolving. Join us every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central on FM Talk 106.5 along the Gulf Coast, or watch live on YouTube as we bring you the latest in plant medicine, advocacy, wellness, and culture. Featuring recurring appearances every other week by Poppa Snoop and Dr. Dana, plus special segments focused on veterans, seniors, recovery, education, and healing through plant-based solutions. More conversations, more education, more community. Welcome to the next chapter of Sweet Home CannaBama.
Hey, CannaBama fans, are you lost and looking for a licensed hemp retailer in Mobile and Baldwin County? Look no further. Cloud9 Vapes has 2 licensed locations, one in Sims and one in Daphne, and are now serving up the relief you need. From edibles and drinks to vapes and topical creams, Cloud9 has the products you need on both sides of the bay, with more to come. Go to cloud9vapesllc.com for more information.
How do you feel about marijuana here in Alabama and its use?
I've talked about, obviously, medical marijuana. I've talked about the same thing, you have descheduling. I've talked about not criminalizing those who have used it. But I've also talked about cannabis, and I've been endorsed by the Alabama Cannabis Coalition. I've talked to people about the health care options they have, exploring cannabis, or even medical marijuana, good stuff, right? And so when you get into it, I'm the only candidate, I don't do this often, but I'm the only candidate that spent hours in training under someone at a professional level who learned, even under a person serving the military, the difference between THC levels, where we get the 0.3 from, what is under 0.3, what's over 0.3. I can tell you the difference between, going into your chemical background, THCA, and how decarbonization results in THC, or the burning process. Here's the basic answer to your question. As governor, one of the first things I'm going to do, one of my first legislative sessions, I'm going to pull legislators in, like these future elected legislators, and I'm going to say, come on with me as we pull physicians, we pull patients, we pull people who are business owners, who are actually in this industry. And let's talk about the benefits. The reason HB 445 has caused some problems is it was pushed through, and no one ever talked about what marijuana is, what it does. No one talked about how many people are locked up in prison right now because of their carrying a certain amount, treated as if they're a violent offender. And the list goes on and on. When we have that legislative session, we can actually overturn what took place in 445 and see where Alabama can be a state that's welcoming to people who have views just like you and I.
Change doesn't wait. Why should you? Welcome to the Gaia Guild, Global Action Impact Awareness. At GaiaGuild.com, thousands are coming together. Creators, innovators, change makers, building a future that matters. Your membership unlocks events, classes, and connections that spark action. And explore the G3 collection and exclusive guild merch at GaiaGuild.shop. This isn't just talk, it's movement and action. Gaia Guild. Join today. Become a guilder. Visit GaiaGuild.shop.
Hey, CannaBama fans, are you lost and looking for a licensed hemp retailer in Mobile and Baldwin County? Look no further. Cloud9 Vapes has 2 licensed locations, one in Sims and one in Daphne, and are now serving up the relief you need. From edibles and drinks to vapes and topical creams, Cloud9 has the products you need on both sides of the bay, with more to come. Go to cloud9vapesllc.com for more.
Sweet Home CannaBama Radio is evolving. Join us every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central on FM Talk 106.5 along the Gulf Coast, or watch live on YouTube as we bring you the latest in plant medicine, advocacy, wellness, and culture. Featuring recurring appearances every other week by Poppa Snoop and Dr. Dana, plus special segments focused on veterans, seniors, recovery, education, and healing through plant-based solutions. More conversations, more education, more community. Welcome to the next chapter of Sweet Home CannaBama.
It's time for Sweet Home CannaBama, a show that'll answer all your questions, provide accurate information, and dispel the myths of CBD. You can participate and have your specific questions answered by emailing sweethomecannabama.com. And now for all things cannabis in Alabama, here's your host, Jennifer Boozer.
Welcome to the show, everybody. You're listening to Sweet Home CannaBama Radio right here on FM Talk 106.5 from Mobile, Alabama, and all across the Gulf Coast. And we are live streaming to the whole wide world on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, all the things. And I said that on purpose because my son made fun of me this weekend and pointed out how many times I say all the things. So here's to you, Isaiah. Anyway, so if you're watching from the live stream, share, hit that subscribe button, share with your friends and family. We're going to do some good work on the behalf of veterans if we can help it tonight, and a lot of good, useful information coming forward in this packed episode with Poppa Snoop, Dr. Dana, and Will Wisner from Grunt Style. So we have a celebrity-packed episode tonight. I'm very proud. Want to thank our sponsors, Cloud9 Vapes in Daphne, Sims, and 2 locations in Mobile. They are one of the few companies that are licensed to sell hemp across the entire state. And so if you go and see them, tell them you heard it on Sweet Home CannaBama for a 10% discount on hemp products. Also, go vote tomorrow. You guys have been with me riding this roller coaster for a long time and have watched over more than a year us fight 8-ban bills, be called dope pushers in public media, just be ground out of business. Some of us lost everything. Everybody lost something. And those people's jobs are dependent on elections. And tomorrow is the primary election here in Alabama. There's a whole lot of controversy leading up to this election. And I will be voting for Dr. Will Boyd, whatever you think of that, because he's not, because he's everything we need. He's educated, he's experienced, he has a passion for the people of Alabama, and he has worked like a dog covering this state top to bottom. I've known him for over a year now, and I have not seen that man sit at home one day. So that's who I'll be voting for. But there's a lot of important elections, and if anyone in your district who is running voted yes for HB 445 and has an opponent, because most of them don't, unfortunately. But if they have an opponent, vote for the opponent, because, you know, everything that they legalize or legally give us, we saw with HB 445, they could take it back just as fast. We need descheduling of cannabis nationally. We need decriminalization across the country, and we need to be left alone because whatever they give us by legalization, they can steal from us again. And I'm tired, y'all. I know everybody else is tired of having that conversation. Please go vote tomorrow. Wherever you're watching from, go and vote if you have a primary election tomorrow. Want to say congratulations to the 2026 graduates and their families. Big congrats to my own daughter, Bella Boozer, who graduates from Saraland High School this week, and my nephew, Baylor Welch, who is graduating in Louisiana as we speak tonight. She's my baby, and it's hard to believe that that part of motherhood is over for me, and I'm holding it together pretty well. But I'm very, very proud of who she is, and I can't say enough about how proud I am to be her mom. So congratulations for all you moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas out there struggling with this milestone. We're right there with you. Callie's Apothecary, The first medical cannabis dispensary in Alabama is once again in the news, saying that they will be ready to open in a few days. A few weeks ago, we reported on it ourselves. They were supposed to open on May the 4th, made a big deal of it, tons of press coverage. Didn't happen. They canceled it the morning of. I sincerely hope that a few days doesn't turn into weeks or months, but here we are 5+ years into waiting as it is. I sincerely hope that a few days is all it takes. There are only about 100 and I think 188 patients statewide and 43 doctors. So we hope that becomes something that actually happens, and we have our first sales of medical cannabis legally here in Alabama. And speaking of veterans, the Veterans Get a Win, a major step for veterans and medical cannabis access, just passed in the House. Lawmakers voted to allow VA doctors to recommend medical marijuana to veterans, ending a longstanding policy that forced many veterans to seek outside providers and pay additional costs to access state medical cannabis programs. Veterans could discuss and receive medical cannabis recommendations directly through VA healthcare workers. Medical cannabis may be able to help address issues many veterans face, including chronic pain, PTSD, and opioid dependence. And supporters say veterans deserve guidance from their doctors, not to navigate treatment decisions alone. Obviously, if you're going to the VA for 90% of your health care, but you also have to seek out medical cannabis treatment, which can be cost prohibitive, and those doctors aren't working together, that could always spell disaster. So we're excited that it's made it this far. The proposal was led by bipartisan lawmakers, including veteran rep Brian Mast, who emphasized the need for more treatment options beyond addictive prescription medications. Of course, this is not the end of the road, and it's not final, but it is a good sign that finally the legislators are listening to and trying to actually help veterans, something we have advocated for from the very first episode of Sweet Home CannaBama. So that's exciting, and we hope it turns out to be true. And going into our guests tonight, we have Poppa Snoop and Dr. Dana on the second segment, and Will Wisner is here for the third and fourth. But what we're going to talk about tonight is a topic that I haven't heard a lot about. I know it's a thing, but one of them is Agent Orange for Vietnam-era vets. Agent Orange was a plant-killing chemical mixture sprayed across Vietnam between 1962 and 1971 to remove forest cover and destroy crops. It contained dioxin, a highly persistent toxin that can damage organs, disrupt hormones, weaken the immune system, and cause cancer. And veterans exposed to Agent Orange have significantly higher rates of serious medical conditions. They call these presumptive diseases, meaning that the VA automatically assumes they were caused by exposure. Some of those diseases are cancer, bladder, prostate, multiple myeloma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Hodgkin's disease, respiratory cancer, chronic B-cell leukemias, neurological disorders like Parkinson's disease, peripheral neuropathy, meaning numbness, tingling, weakness, heart and metabolic diseases, ischemic heart disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and then skin and autoimmune disorders, a bunch of words I can't pronounce. So obviously symptoms can include fatigue, breathing difficulty, tremor, swelling, frequent infection, and nerve pain. And then the effect isn't just on the veteran, it also has increased risk for birth defects for those people's children, such as spina bifida, cleft palate, limb deformalities, and other developmental issues in children of exposed veterans. While not all links are scientifically confirmed, the VA provides benefits for certain conditions like spina bifida. And why that matters still, here we are, it's 2026. Well, these guys are still around. I mean, look at Poppa. He was a Vietnam veteran. And Agent Orange exposure has caused decades of chronic illness and disability among these Vietnam-era veterans. And many continue to seek treatment and VA benefits for those conditions tied to their service. And then Will is here to talk about the younger veterans, the ones that are in their 40s and 50s, who were in Iraq and Afghanistan and places like that, and had their own kind of toxic chemical exposure, and suffered from many diseases and disorders because of the toxic chemical exposure. So we are going to dive into this topic first with Poppa Snoop and Dr. Dana. And then, of course, we're going to talk to Will about what that means for the younger veterans, how they are seeking plant medicine as part of their treatment, and what we can do to help support that cause, because all of these guys are suffering. And from what I understand, you can't always see their injuries. And so you don't always know. When you see someone who's lost a limb, or has scars on their body, that you know that they've been injured. But the mental health issues are not the only invisible signs of disease and disorder. So when we come back, we will be discussing Agent Orange exposure and plant medicine with Poppa Snoop and Dr. Dana. Stay with us.
Hey, CannaBama fans, are you lost and looking for a licensed hemp retailer in Mobile and Baldwin County? Look no further. Cloud9 Vapes has 2 licensed locations, one in Sims and one in Daphne, and are now serving up the relief you need. From edibles and drinks to vapes and topical creams, Cloud9 has the products you need on both sides of the bay, with more to come. Go to cloud9vapesllc.com for more information.
Now. We tend not to think about now. We dream about tomorrow, relive yesterday, but sometimes we don't see what's right in front of us. Victory over cancer is in front of us. Right now, cancer research is saving lives. Cancer research funded by the V Foundation is leading to new discoveries and new treatments, and ultimately, one day, victory over cancer. Right now, 1 out of every 2 men and 1 out of every 3 women will get cancer in their lifetime. Now is your moment. You may save someone you love. The V Foundation has the skill, the speed, and the strength to achieve victory over cancer. Because today's cancer research is tomorrow's victory. Learn more at v.org.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Welcome back to Sweet Home CannaBama. Now, with all the information you want about CBD, here's your host, Jennifer Boozer.
Welcome back, everybody, to Sweet Home CannaBama. I'm your host, Jennifer Boozer Stewart, and I want to introduce our guests tonight on our special segment, Poppa Snoop and Dr. Dana. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
So I want to start with you, Poppa Snoop. You've worked with veterans for years. You are a veteran. What does it mean to you when we say this conversation is about support and education and not fear?
It means a lot to me because I've always educated young people on my experience in Vietnam, and I've always been an advocate fighting for Agent Orange. I heard you say that a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. And my thing is like this. Okay, type 2 diabetes have killed more Vietnam vets than cancer, all the things you name. Okay,
really?
My thing is my thing is like this. I've been on the list to get paid for Agent Orange. Me and some guys I was in Vietnam with for 49 years, and they would not pay us for Agent Orange.
Wow.
And they always tell you we need proof. Well, the proof is what you just said.
Right.
They sprayed that from 1962 to 1971. And I watched a documentary last week and began to find out that they sprayed it to kill vegetation, but any Vietnam vet would tell you that didn't mean nothing because it was still, Vietnam is the largest country, 1,000 miles from coast to coast. Yeah. So my whole tour in Vietnam, I was in the jungle. So to me, it didn't make sense. And my thing's like this. It took me 1970 up until 2002 to get my 100%.
Wow.
So I have some friends of mine right now. I got one friend of mine. He lives in Corona, California. He's in the Navy on a flight deck. And we all have Agent Orange, right? They took him from 80%, he just got to 90%. My thing is, why can't you just go and give him 100%?
Right.
And what I want to do, I want to take this complaint to Washington in front of Congress and ask them, why are we getting paid, man? I mean, some of these guys who had Agent Orange, the kids has Agent Orange.
Yeah.
The kids has medical problems. And most of my talk to, it really makes me mad that we fighting, and they're constantly denying us. Okay,
yeah.
When you get 100%, it's two things they're going to tell you to withdraw from: tendonitis and Agent Orange. But they know for a fact that we have Agent Orange. The proof is out there. I mean, you got guys, their skin's all messed up. I have it every now and then on my hands.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I got Steve and Ro, and we are with the BMW in Phoenix, Arizona. And whatever we have to do, I want to take this to Washington, D.C. I want to talk to a couple congressmen that's here and get me up to D.C., get me on TV, and let people know how we have been treated as Vietnam vets, and they won't pay us Agent Orange. Right.
Well, it's funny, and I didn't know this until recently, but one of our producers of this show, his dad was exposed to Agent Orange, and he is a victim of dioxin poisoning. So I had no idea, I didn't know very much about this. My dad was a little bit too young to go to Vietnam. And so I've heard of Agent Orange, but I didn't really understand the scope of the damage. So I appreciate your perspective on this. Dr. Dana, in the simplest terms, how would you explain what Agent Orange has done to these veterans and why dioxin contamination is still a concern? I mean, obviously, these people's children were born in the 70s and probably early 80s, and I had no idea. I was born in 1978, had no idea.
Well, dioxin as a toxin will adhere in the body, and it has no desire to leave. It really wants to make your body its home. And so it's an insidious resident that's wreaking havoc. It's increasing chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, which is us rusting from the inside out. Mm-hmm. It's compromising our hormones. It's compromising our immune system. And so we need to be proactive to put something in the door to stop some of that insidious, ick.
Right. Yeah. What conditions do you see the most often from Vietnam era veterans? I know we talked about diabetes, heart disease, Parkinson's, cancer.
We're seeing blood cancers, lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. We're also seeing multiple myeloma, hypertension, prostate cancer. And we will write off prostate cancer for age, but it could be Agent Orange.
Right. Wow. Poppa Snoop, from your advocacy work, why do so many veterans delay getting checked and documented? I mean, I know on the last show you mentioned that there was a little bit of a pride issue, but what stops people from finding out or getting proof if that's possible?
Well, the thing of this, a lot of guys, and I'm a victim of it, go out to the VA, and the line is so long, they feed you a bunch of bull to really just sugarcoat things. Yeah. So a lot of guys just to the hell with it. I'm not going. They're not doing anything for me. Right. And like I said, and that's seriously the VA. They play games. They want you to quit. They want you to quit coming. Yeah. They want you to stop. They want you to stop fighting. Yeah. And when you stop doing that, you're playing right into their hands.
Right. You don't cost them any money if you can never get an appointment.
Right. My thing is to let the veterans know, fight for what you earn in the military. Yeah. Fight fight for your fellow comrades, guys who lost their life on the battlefield.
Right.
So another thing I want to bring up, there's a lot of mothers out there that their husband was killed in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq, and they are fighting to get 100% for their kids to go to college. They're fighting for 100% to give their kids a decent life.
Right.
They're having a hard time doing that. My thing is, if your husband be killed in a war, it should be automatic that you get 100%.
Right.
It should be automatic that after high school, that your kids go to college and get paid for it until they graduate.
Right. Yeah. I know kids who lost their dad in a car accident, and Social Security paid for lots of things for them. They had free medical care. They got a check every month until they were 18, 19 years old. Why isn't that the same for children of the VA, especially when their parent has died? And I have seen the VA drag their feet and take years when it should take weeks or months to get something done. Dr. Dana, you talk a lot about chronic inflammation. How does plant-based medicine help support the body without claiming to treat Agent Orange related disease?
Well, we always want you connected to your medical doctor, but you could be very proactive in the way of decreasing your inflammation with your diet, with your exercise, with your thought life, with your hydration. And when we talk diet, cruciferous vegetables, green vegetables like nuts, seeds, lentils. You can supplement with high fiber food so that you're cleansing your system. And you can supplement with, let's say, plant-based medicine. CBG, cannabidiol, is amazing for peripheral neuropathy, for pain, for vision. You could supplement with CBD, good for inflammation and pain. Both of those, cannabidiol and cannabidiol, CBG, CBD, support your nervous system. And Agent Orange goes after the nervous system. The last and newest guy on the planet for cannabis is CBC, cannabidiol. It makes you and I make brand new nerve cells. Yeah. Helps with really bad pain. But if you're uncomfortable, then add vitamin C. It's an antioxidant. Add omega fish oil. It's an antioxidant. Or maybe you want to cook more with turmeric or curcumin. There's so many things that you and I can do that will help decrease that inflammatory load and stop the internal rusting, that will support the body's terrain so that we can age gracefully.
Yes. And I guess if you're talking about a chemical that does want to hang around that way, sweeping the body of as much of the other types of inflammation from our diet, from our stress levels, from our environments to optimize what we do have to fight it is obviously, it should be the first line of defense. I mean, don't you agree?
I do.
Yeah. Poppa, what's your message to veterans who feel overwhelmed or unsure where to start? What would you tell somebody who's certain that they have these issues and what they should do to get the attention that they need?
First thing I would tell them to go to the VA. Okay. Join a class, a PTSD class, because once you join that class, you have a psychiatrist, okay, that teach you all your problems to. Now, that being said, that along with Agent Orange, fighting to get paid for Agent Orange, all that goes hand in hand. But once again, a lot of guys just have given up, and my job is to kind of motivate them. Right. Okay, to motivate them, man, get up, call the VA. You don't have to drive. They have vans to come by and pick you up from your house. Get into the system. That's the main thing. Right. Once you get into the system, now you have leverage to get your doctor, to get your psychiatrist, but you have to make your appointments. A lot of guys that was in my class in LA, they get the 100%, and they forgot that you should have to make your appointment. So, that being said, so my thing is like every time I'm around veterans, I tell them all, don't give up. Go back to the VA, man. Fight for your rights, man, because you earn those rights.
Right. And Dr. Dana, how important is that to be able to have someone at the VA that you can tell what's going on? Real quick before we go to break.
It's a godsend. You know that someone's got your back.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. We have to go to break now. Thank you so much for being with us, Poppa Snoop and Dr. Dana, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.
All right.
FM Talk 106.5, the Gulf Coast Weather Authority, and Dr. Bill Williams.
The Gulf Coast can expect patchy fog tonight. Low temperatures will be in the lower 70s at daybreak. For Tuesday, morning fog, then mostly sunny, highs in the upper 80s. And the outlook for Wednesday, mostly sunny with highs again in the upper 80s. This is meteorologist Dr. Bill Williams for FM Talk 106.5.
FM Talk 106.5, the Gulf Coast Weather Authority.
Good afternoon. I'm Peter Albrecht, WKRG News 5. 5 people shot, 1 dead near Taylor Park in Mobile. Police say it happened just before 2 this morning on O'Donnell Street. 1 man was found shot to death outside a home. Another man and 3 women went to hospitals with non-life-threatening injuries. No arrests have been made. The Mary G. Montgomery High School football team has been fined and placed on probation for a year, and their coach suspended for a year for illegal recruiting. The AHSAA made the announcement today. The Vikings will not be eligible for postseason play this fall, and Zach Golson will not be coaching. Golson has already been placed on administrative leave by the Mobile County Public School System. Any athletes at MGM illegally are banned from playing for the Vikings, but will be allowed to play at their legally zoned school. Alabama will host LSU in a best-of-3 Super Softball Regional starting Friday. The winner will go to the 18 College Softball World Series. I'm Peter Albrecht, WKRG News 5.
Hey, CannaBama fans, are you lost and looking for a licensed hemp retailer in Mobile and Baldwin County? Look no further. Cloud9 Vapes has 2 licensed locations, one in Sims and one in Daphne, and are now serving up the relief you need. From edibles and drinks to vapes and topical creams, Cloud9 has the products you need on both sides of the bay with more to come. Go to cloud9vapesllc.com for more information.
Participate in an Alabama Pals project and help people against a littered state make a lasting impact. Through our Clean Campus program, you can request school visits, supplies, and participate in the annual Clean Campus contest. In April, join thousands of volunteers for Don't Drop It on Alabama, our statewide spring cleanup. And mark your calendars for our coastal cleanup on Saturday, September 19th. Help protect our shorelines during the state's largest one-day volunteer event. Visit alpals.org to register today. Sponsored by PALS, ABA, and this station.
Welcome back to Sweet Home CannaBama. Now with all the information you want about CBD, here's your host, Jennifer Boozer.
Welcome back, everybody, to Sweet Home CannaBama right here on FM Talk 106.5 and live streaming from our YouTube channel. Share this with your friends. I think this information is already invaluable. What a great segment with Poppa Snoop and Dr. Dana to tee us up for our friend Will Wisner, who is co-founder of the Grunt Style Foundation. Will, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's always good to see you, Jennifer, and I'm a big admirer of all the work that you do, and you are everywhere down there.
I'm trying. I appreciate you guys. I love catching your podcast live when it's on and sharing that with people. I follow a lot of you guys, and the work that you do is invaluable, especially for people like the ones that Poppa Snoop was just talking about, who give up or who don't know where to turn. And, I can't say enough about you guys. I talk about y'all every chance I get. So let's get into chemical exposure, because one of the first times I ever really heard about this in a way that made me go, I didn't realize this was such a big issue, was when I heard you talk about it and mention that this was a personal issue for you. So most people think Agent Orange ended in Vietnam, but the exposure didn't stop there, obviously. What kind of chemical hazards do post-Vietnam veterans face?
Jennifer, it's a long list of exposures that veterans face, and it's not all just to chemicals. Some of it's heavy metals.
Right.
And I think what most veterans don't really realize is when you get into the area of brain trauma and toxicity, what you will find as you learn about it is that every time you pull that trigger and send a round downrange, you are getting a micro concussion right in the center of your forehead, and you're also inhaling that particulate matter that comes out of the backside of those cartridges, right? So that's, lead, that's, gunpowder, it's all the things that are in munitions. And, that's true for all weapons platforms, whether the small carried rifles or the cannons. All these things do expose folks to these types of materials. So post-Vietnam, outside of the Agent Orange, which is really the signature illness, not even just Vietnam, it's just become synonymous with, shady shenanigans of the government and denying veterans health care. And, we had a part 2 of that with the war on terror in the form of burn pits. And that's the one that is really kind of front and center right now, that is still, even after all this time from the PACT Act's passage, we're still trying to cover ground in raising awareness that this is a thing. And what these burn pits were these open air pits in the ground where all of the trash and refuse just generated on a military installation in a combat theater was tossed into it. It was covered in jet fuel and then lit on fire. And some of these things burn 24 hours a day. And we had guys living right next to the things, just inhaling that stuff 24 hours a day. Wow. And there's repercussions that are coming along with that. People are suffering some pretty serious health consequences even today.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you think about a fire, just a regular fire where you're burning wood, there's smoke damage. Anytime something's combustible and you breathe in what goes into the air, I can't imagine. I mean, I imagine it got so bad. I've seen videos of these burn pits and they look like this black roiling, like hell coming right out of the earth and spreading out all over the sky. I mean, I can't imagine that didn't literally rain down on you.
Oh, it absolutely did. That was a common joke while you're over there, was getting up in the morning and, getting rid of all of the ash and particulate stuff that was coming out of these clouds, from your sleeping bag. And for the guys that were living in they called them chews, but they're like little mini apartment trailer kind of a things that some of the fobs had. That stuff would come in through the air ventilation. And I mean, it was impossible to avoid it.
Right. I mean, that's just air quality 101, that if it's small enough to float in the air, it's small enough to penetrate all the cracks and crevices of ventilation systems and your vehicles and, your clothing even, and get down in places you don't even want to talk about, I bet.
And your lungs.
Well, obviously that's the big one.
Into your lungs. Yeah.
I imagine it might even affect your eyes and things like that too. I mean, it makes my eyes itch just thinking about it. What about solvents and fuels, pesticides? I read about depleted uranium, all that stuff.
That is a thing. That is a thing. So your solvents, these are your things that we clean the weapon systems with before you would turn them into your armor. Everybody that's been through basic training has experienced that, and all the solvents that you're just kind of wearing as you're trying to get these weapon systems clean at 2 a.m. so you can go home and you'll bathe in CLP lubricant, to get these things turned in, and you can just be done with it. Then the fuels, of course, from the diesel fuel that they're throwing into the burn pits, there's a lot of diesel fuel that are inside of veterans when we do these toxicity testing. And a lot of that can be from the burn pits, and a lot of that can just be from working around, vehicles, and you're always having to refuel, and so it's part of it. Pesticides, one of the big illnesses that is not talked about enough from the global war on terror era is this anti-malarial pill called mefloquine, and mefloquine is nasty, nasty business. It causes a brain injury to the limbic system of your brain. So basically it will turn you into permanent fight or flight. And it's a scale of severity. So like on the low end of it, pretty much everybody, while you're taking it, will have bad dreams. It's kind of the signature of that particular pill. Because you would have these weird, funky melatonin dreams while you're on these pills. Then you get into the mid-range of it, and this level on to the top range affects about 13% of everybody that took these pills. And if you're in that 13%, your mid-range would look like PTSD symptoms, sometimes quite severe. And a lot of times we're having a lot of misdiagnoses on as a PTSD diagnosis when in fact it's actually a brain injury caused by these antimalarials. Now on the extreme end of mefloquine, there's no coming back from that. That is full-blown audio-visual hallucinations that do not turn off. And it is a horrible situation to be caught up into. So that's some of your pesticides. Those were mandatory. They used to have what they called mefloquine Mondays, where the medic would have everybody information. He would hand out, that Monday pill to make sure that the guys got it. The last one you mentioned was depleted uranium, and that's from munitions. That is stuff that may be burnt over from armor that may have been destroyed. The guys, especially coming through in the Thunder Run, having to do battlefield damage assessments and get out and crawl around in that stuff. Or in the case like where I lived, I was a combat outpost cache. I did 12 of my 15 months in Iraq there. And I'm full of uranium, or was. I've been working to get it out for a while. God bless you, Dr. Eric Naputi from St. Louis, to get those things out of me. But I struggled for almost 20 years trying to get depleted uranium out of me. So it's a real thing. Toxicity and the military go hand in hand.
My God, I think I'd rather get malaria than deal with that pill. That's all I could think of when you were describing it. I think I'd rather have malaria. And I don't even know the scope of what malaria would do, but it sounds terrible to be in permanent fight or flight. I mean, my God, what a cost. I think too many of us don't realize, the ones of us that didn't go and experience that, I really don't think people realize how prolific toxic exposure is. We always think of bullets and bombs, and things like that, but we don't think about the goo you're literally exposed to in so many different ways. And like you said, there's all sorts of things. The shots that they give you, I know somebody whose son went into the Air Force, got all these vaccines, and then had to be discharged because he was so severely depressed for the first time in his life he couldn't function. So oh my gosh, so what are the early warning symptoms and signs? I mean, you talked about such a broad range of exposures. What are the most common things that for you, what was an indicator for you that you had depleted uranium or had been exposed to these things, and that was the culprit in what you were dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, well, personally, I had a lot of different symptoms. They hit at different times as different things were progressing. I knew what the problem was right away. I was just powerless to engage it because I was having to go through the VA system. And the VA at that time, it's like you're going to have a easier time, explaining and quantifying how many angels can dance on the head of a pin when you were getting a service connection for these illnesses that were clearly caused by this toxicity. In my case, I was fatigued. I started having little skin cancers, things like that. That started to progress. I started getting a lot of brain fog, started having a lot of memory issues, personality swings. And of course, during all of this, I'm going in trying to seek help, and I'm being given psychotropic medication from the VA, these antidepressants and things, which were making me really go off into left field.
Right.
And then when you come back, they're like, hey, I think these pills are doing whatever, and we're still not addressing the underlying problem of why I came in to begin with. And they ended up diagnosing me with a moral compass injury, because after they gave me a pulmonary function test, which which I don't even know where that came from, but that's what their first protocol was. And when I came back in normal range for that, they said, "Oh, there you go. Your test is good. So therefore, you've got this psych stuff here where you've got a moral compass injury. So you've seen or done something so contrary to your sense of right and wrong that I'd shattered my psyche, and I was starting to manifest phantom illnesses I didn't have. And now I'm on these head meds, and I'm starting to even get a little more crazier in the med bug. And their answer is, oh, your condition is progressing. We should up your dosage and change your medications. And that's a very cliche at this point example of how the typical veteran experience is going inside the VA. You get put on these pills that complicate things. They're as effective as a placebo up to the mid-tier. And then if you're on them and you're in that category of people who's genetically just going to not mesh well with these things, what the predominant side effect an increase in suicidal ideation, if you can believe that.
Well,
So
and we know that the
you're
suicide
depressed.
rate is unacceptably high in this country. And that's, I mean,
Yes.
this is crazy because you're telling me, which I already kind of know this happens across the board in allopathic medicine, conventional medicine. Instead of getting what's inside of your body that's hurting you out, they just pile on with the head meds and give you things or tell you you're morally bankrupt because something broke you. I mean, come on, they sent you over there to do things that most of us don't want to have to do, you know? And then oh, wow. That fired me up a little bit when you said that.
Yeah.
Because come on, man. We did this because we were told to do it. And of course, some of those things are traumatic.
That is why we have had 18 veterans commit suicide at VA facilities across the country.
Right.
Is because they're trapped in this garbage healthcare system where rather than give you something that actually may provide for relief, they're going to give you the status quo that Big Pharma has trained the medical professionals to give you that they're not trained to get you off of. So once you're on it, you're on for the ride, man. That's it.
Well, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk more with Will about chemical exposure and plant medicine. Stay with us.
Hey, CannaBama fans, are you lost and looking for a licensed hemp retailer in Mobile and Baldwin County? Look no further. Cloud9 Vapes has 2 licensed locations, one in Sims and one in Daphne, and are now serving up the relief you need. From edibles and drinks to vapes and topical creams, Cloud9 has the products you need on both sides of the bay with more to come. Go to cloud9vapesllc.com for more information.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the AHSAA, are the 138,000 high school sports students in Alabama. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball, and volleyball players. We stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible, because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
Welcome back to Sweet Home CannaBama. Now with all the information you want about CBD, here's your host, Jennifer Boozer.
Welcome back, everybody. The final segment of Sweet Home CannaBama. Tonight, we were talking with Will Wisner, co-founder of the Grunt Style Foundation. Will, we were just talking about all the different ways that military members have been exposed to chemical toxins. We talked about medications, fuels, pesticides, solvents, burn pits, and Agent Orange. So let's talk. And at the end of that segment also, you mentioned that instead of trying to help you get rid of all those terrible things in your bodies, that the VA just wants to kind of Band-Aid it. It's amazing to me, too, because, you know, what Poppa Snoop said earlier about how their lines are long and it takes so long and so much effort to get treatment. You would think that they would be fans of something that would kind of clean out your system and make you need less medication and less procedural intervention.
Well, you would think that would be the case across the entirety of the healthcare system, and it's not. We're pushing products for pharmaceutical companies. That is what we are doing. Now, the VA can explain that away in a lot of different ways. You know, the most recently biggest thing is you can go back to the Phoenix VA scandal around 2014 where they had those guys die on the waiting list. You know, that spurred the Clay Hunt Act going, oh, man, we've got all these suicides and all this stuff is happening. We really need to just pour gasoline onto the fire in spending terms to get this knocked down. All they did was supercharge the pharmaceutical express. So we now are in a situation where we have over 70% of all the veterans inside the VHA, that's the hospital element of the Veterans Administration, 70% of our veterans are prescribed these psychotropic medications. And again, the primary side effect is that it increases your suicidal ideation. And so is it any wonder that we're losing 22 to 40-something veterans a day? We've lost over 162,000 veterans to suicide since 9/11. Maybe it's the pills they're giving us en masse that happen to cause suicide. Call me crazy.
Right. Well, when you said that 18 different veterans had killed themselves at VA locations, to me, you know, that's somebody who saw no way out, had no help, but in the end, in their final acts, wanted to at least draw attention to why they were having to resort to that. So I'm sure in the hopes that it would shine a light on all the people that are almost to that point and maybe prevent suicides. It's so incredibly sad, you know, to imagine that they would go to the VA and do that. And still here we are. It really hasn't made an impact. They sacrificed themselves in the end in a way that would bring attention, and we're still dragging our feet and still waiting years for treatment or being given head meds instead of what we actually need. I mean, that's crazy to me and so terribly sad.
Well, we're gaining ground and understanding and awareness that these things are issues.
Right.
You know, there's pushback coming from within side of the machine. And, you know, the powers that be are not in favor of doing some of the actions that Secretary Kennedy is wanting done. And so, you know, I was thrilled when I was hearing what was coming out here a couple of weeks ago at the MAHA convention there at the MAHA Institute. And, you know, was going through this list of these head meds and getting, you know, reducing the use of it immediately. And the easiest way we could do that is the VA just bring back informed consent.
Yeah.
You know, President Biden got rid of that towards the end of his administration inexplicably. So now we're no longer requiring informed consent on opioids. And we want that brought back, and we want that expanded out to these psychotropic medications that have black box warnings from the FDA.
Right.
But the VA is loath to make people sign an informed consent notice because it will dissuade people from taking these pills, which is exactly what we need to do. But they consider it to be their standard of health care, and so they're going to go down fighting to keep that status quo in place, and that's coming at the expense of thousands of veteran lives, and that's unacceptable.
Well, and knowing full well, the medical community knows that just blanket prescribing SSRIs is a bad idea. You know, I was watching a commercial the other day. I hate drug commercials so much, but it was a commercial for a condition called tardive dyskinesia. That's involuntary muscle movements caused by your antidepressant. So they wanted to give you this other drug for the involuntary muscle movements, but that caused suicide and depression. Like, why are we on this hamster wheel still? Does anybody really believe that what we've been doing is working, regardless of how many billions of dollars the pharma people pump in against cannabis, against natural medicine, and for drugging all of us? You know, what are we doing here? You know, your antidepressant makes you spaz, and then you take a medicine for the spaz and maybe you kill yourself. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, you've already called it out, right? Would you say, I don't like seeing those pharmaceutical commercials?
Yeah.
Now think about that for a minute. They are rubbing our noses in it.
In your face.
People everywhere across the country are having the same conversation around the water cooler or wherever else. It's like, have you seen these medical commercials? They got a list that's as long as King Kong's arm of all these horrible gas.
That's half the commercial is the side effects.
Right. So then we have to wonder, why exactly is it when I watch cable news, all I see is these commercials for these boner pills and hair cream, you know, on these news outlets? Well, that's because that's who controls the narrative. And they're not expecting, Jennifer Boozer to get on and watch the show and say, oh, you know what? That commercial has inspired me. I'm going to go ask my doctor about that. That has nothing to do with why those commercials are being shown. It is the major source of revenue for the people that can tell the story. And so now those media outlets have incentive not to go against the hand that's feeding them. So you're watching this game playing out directly in front of you.
Right. And we're the only one. I think is the Britain the only other country that allows these commercials anyway? Like, we're one of the only countries in the world that allows this propaganda. And I think, as much as it is what you said, I think it's normalization. It's normalization of explosive diarrhea and leukemia for a psoriasis medicine. You got a skin condition, it's embarrassing. Maybe you'll die getting treatment. I mean, it's normalizing that craziness. I mean, we all know that pharmaceutical grade methamphetamines are not great for children, but now I know so many women on Adderall, all of a sudden we're all ADHD, it's crazy, but taking a pill for whatever you got going on is normal. And I think that's the worst thing that's come out of all of this is everybody knows there's 100 side effects for the one thing it's supposed to treat, and they do it anyway. Yes. And that's what boggles me is they do it anyway.
We've been so desensitized to our own demise by eating these poisons that we are to the point where we look at natural remedies that have no side effects that are absolutely beneficial and address the root core problems that we consider that bad. That's how far down the rabbit hole of crazy that we have got. We are calling drugs medicine and medicine drugs.
Yes.
Good is evil, evil is good, down is up.
Yes. Well, this didn't go in the direction that I planned, but it went in a better direction. But we are almost out of time, and I do want to bring that up. What do you see for the future right now? I know that there's traction with ibogaine. There's traction with psilocybin. Of course, there's always drama with cannabis. Do you see this moving in a favorable direction legislatively and I guess normalizing it and making it to where people want to do these things as a first resort instead of a last resort?
We've got to keep Bobby Kennedy in office and alive at all costs.
Right. I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
So I'm very optimistic, especially in the hemp industry. We've been through one hell of a rough year with the hemp battles. I lost our battle here in Missouri. We fought as hard as we could fight.
Yes.
But I think there's things coming. I think we'll see them start to play out around June 29th. And I tell you what, you've got a little war for the soul of the GOP going on is what's happening.
And you can't honor the executive order and the Medicare program for CBD and also go with 0.4 milligrams per container total THC. It's just impossible.
Right.
John Grady was on the show with us talking about Missouri last week, and I lost my business, and that was almost a year ago. Last week was a year since that law passed, and a lot of us, there's hardly anyone selling hemp at all in Alabama anymore. And we served a lot of veterans of all ages. So thank you so much. Where can we find you online?
You can find us at gruntstylefoundation.org. That's the main website. You can find us on social media at Grunt Style Foundation or over on X at Grunt Style FDN.
All right. Thank you so much, Will, for being with us tonight. Congratulations to all the 2026 grads, and join us. We're going to be off next week. Sorry, for Memorial Day. We're going to take a break with graduation and everything. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a good night.